Okay, podcast listeners, I've got a special guest with us today, Mr. Tyler Swartz, Irish dance extraordinaire, I think. Tyler, how's it going?
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, for people who don't know you, tell us a little bit about who Tyler Swartz is, his Irish dance history.
Oh
And
boy.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, you wouldn't think with a last name Schwartz that Irish dancing would go with that. But yeah, I've been Irish dancing most of my life, over 20 years now. It's crazy to think that. But yeah, most of it competitively for about 18 or so of those years, and then the past touring around the world.
okay, well, awesome.
Um,
Yeah, yeah. And so
yeah.
competitive experience. Talk to us about that. How far did you go in competition? What were some of your highlights?
Um, Yeah, I guess highlights would include winning the World Championships, senior men's in 2013. I won a couple All Ireland titles, North American titles, All Scotland and Great Britain titles. My regional one here in Chicago. I'm actually in Delaware right now, but I'm based in Chicago. So
Okay.
yeah, I did pretty well with competition. I was a very competitive little guy, and that really motivated me and drove me to work my craft, as you call it.
Exactly. Exactly. And so talk about your performance dancing.
So I was actually still in college. My parents were like, "Look, we know you want to do something with Irish dancing, but let's maybe have a safety net, just in case."
Right. Things don't work out. Yeah.
And I'm like, that makes sense. So I always strongly recommend, like, make sure, education always comes first. Um, and I competed up until I graduated school. Um, and then I really had no idea what was out there performance wise. I knew about Riverdance and Lord of the Dance and all that stuff, but I really didn't think that, someone could, tour around and perform like year round and like make that how you lived.
Right.
I really had no idea, and so I assumed that I would just take a year off. I went to school for education, so I figured I'd try touring for a year,
Sure.
and then my plan was to become a math teacher in Chicago, and 6 or 7 years later, the plans have changed a little bit.
A little bit.
I'm
Yeah.
still loving life, still loving what I do.
That's awesome. That's great. So what all shows have you been involved with over the years?
Oh boy. Um, I'd say like the highlights would include Rock and Roll to Dublin here,
Hmm.
Irish Dance and Rock and Roll, Gale Force Dance overseas, Magic of the Dance. I started my performance career really dancing with the Trinity Company in
Right.
Chicago.
Right.
Um, and I learned a little bit from each experience. I almost did Riverdance. I was rehearsing like a quick 1 week like crash course in Riverdance in Dublin about 2 years ago, but I unfortunately got an injury
Uh-oh.
during that rehearsal process because it was so intense and my legs were just like whoa. So I had to pull out, but I still can say like I learned a few of the steps, so that was
Sure.
fun. That's like so yeah, I've loved performing. I really didn't see myself as a performer. I was way more into the competitive scene. But as I got older, my shifted motivations as a competitor. I wanted to perform to the audiences more than the judges at a certain point. I was like, maybe that's a hint that that's where I should go next.
Sure.
But yeah,
Yeah. So there's a lot of people out there, dancer wise, that maybe young dancers that they're aspiring to maybe when they get done competing to do a show. I mean, who wouldn't, as an Irish dancer, who wouldn't want to do Riverdance or Raglan Road or any of the smaller or larger performances? Give them a little bit of insight of what goes on first off with the audition process, and then sort of the day-to-day life of what they would probably experience if they get picked up by one of these shows.
that's a big question
The
to
big question,
unpack.
yeah.
Yeah, wow. I could write an essay on that, the whole process of it. Well, it's really it is evolving. I think when I started getting into the performance world, it was more about who, yes and no. It's about making connections and whatnot, and kind of sending your basic videos of you dancing to the right people and whatnot. But now things are evolving, and you've got Riverdance, their summer school, and their auditioning process. Florida Dance does a similar thing. All these schools or not schools, all these shows are kind of shifting to that style. So I feel like there's more accessibility now more than ever to really get yourself out there. And with all the social media and all that stuff, there's even more opportunities to get your dancing, your name, what you do out there to the right people. And it really is just that simple in my opinion.
That's true. It seems like there are a lot more avenues to get yourself recognized than there used to be. So once you get picked up on a show, what's sort of the day-to-day goings on? I'm sure it's not all glamorous, just going out there on stage, performing, taking your bow, and then going home. There's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, it is a full-time job, and I in some of the videos I've done, or like vlogs where I'm like on tour, I try to highlight that the stuff that's going on behind the scenes. There really is a lot going on when you're not taking care of your legs or stretching or warming up or this and that. You're trying to rest. You're trying to get your body clock to hit your energy peak at the right moment.
Right.
It's also a 24-hour job that's very, very social, in that you're constantly around. I have a little bit of introverted tendencies, so sometimes I need to like have my own space and my own little walks around, the different towns that we tour through. So it's really balancing all that stuff out, and you really kind of have to have your energy turned on at all times, because so many things are thrown at you, and you really have to balance it all out. And
Right.
as you get older, you got to really take care of those legs.
Absolutely. I can relate to that.
Yeah.
I got a few years on you. So yeah, take care of those legs. I actually watched a video. I don't know if it's one that you put out today, but I think it's your most recent one. You're going through some stretches for shin splints. And that's, as you know, I mean, that's like the number one injury for Irish dancers. And you've got to take care of those legs, or it'll come back to bite you later on.
It
for sure.
is the bane of most Irish dancers.
It is.
Have such overdeveloped calves and quads and underdeveloped everything else, and
Exactly.
Just the mismatch and unbalance just like hits you in the weirdest ways and in the shins.
Right.
And, I've always had to fight with that because I'm not a very flexible person naturally. I have to stretch every morning, night to just maintain the bare bones flexibility that I can get.
Right.
And so, things like that, like shin splints, I've always had to fight those. And those, I did a video where I showed my after, dancing, because we all just love to keep dancing no matter what.
Well, and we're notorious for dancing through things that we should otherwise pay attention to and rest a little. We dance through injuries all the time. Not very smart, push through what you can, but you got to pay attention to your body.
Sure. Will dancing make it worse? No, it's just going to hurt. Well, then I'll just keep going. Yeah.
There we go. What do you think is one of the biggest misconceptions of show dancing? I think a lot of people look at the glamorous side of it, and they're not, most people don't come from a performance background, so it's completely new to them. But it's not all glorious and it's not all glamorous. What are some of the misconceptions that you found, maybe when you went in as opposed to your real experience? Talk to us about that.
Well, I guess the big one was, I was coming into the performance world kind of on, not necessarily, like I didn't have like an ego or anything, but I was kind of coming in on my high horse, just coming off winning the worlds competitively. I was like, I should be all right with this. Like this will go well,
You're something. Not many of you win the worlds. You're something, Yeah.
And, my first real experience outside of the country was with Magic of the Dance. And it was a real like reality check, because it was obviously, in performance, there's a lot more like syncopated movements beyond just the legs. There's blocking involved where you're working together with all the other dancers on stage. You're using your arms, which is
foreign,
unnatural at first. Some shows are very theatrical and you have to give emotion. And in Irish dancing, no, you don't. Like competitively, if you show any emotion, like this usually points against you. Yes. So it's very much like back body check for me. And then just what I was like saying earlier, it's a 24-7 job. You're not just performing once a day and then you get to chill for the rest of, the other 22 hours. It's you're constantly with people. You're constantly in this environment where you're always moving. There's no real opportunities to plant your roots and just,
Right.
So, but it is a blast. I've made some of my best friends doing it. I've had so many opportunities to travel the world that I wouldn't have otherwise had. But you just got to know that like that's coming. Like you got to know the other side of it. It is a lot of work. It's tough.
Exactly.
2 hours of dancing is no joke.
So how many hours would you log in in a general one show a night performance schedule? There's obviously hours that go in to prepping for it ahead of time, and then there's stuff that happens after the show. So it's not just an hour and a half, 2 hour show. What are you looking at commitment wise each day?
Well, I mean, normally, like every show does it a different way, but other times you get like that freedom to kind of run your own program. Like I'd love to be super warmed up before a big show. I like to have a little sweat going.
Sure.
That's that way I know like, okay, I'm in a good zone that like my legs won't freak out if I just automatically start moving fast. But that's a couple hours, it's an hour or so before the show. You're getting ready, you're warming up, you're stretching, and hours before that, usually there's a rotation call where you go to this new stage with new wings and different challenges and different things you have to keep in mind for the showtime. You're going through your blocks, going through all this stuff, and that starts way earlier in the day. If you have a show at 7, it's probably happening about 4 or 5, and then like I said, the warm-ups, the stretches, and then the stretches afterwards, the icing and all that. If you're doing it properly, that's the big asterisk is like, if you're doing it properly, there's a lot more work involved to stay safe, stay healthy through all of it.
Right. Some of your more memorable experiences while you're performing, what were some of your highlights? Stay with you to this day.
Genuinely, like, I could say some of the bigger venues and all of that, but like when you're performing, you take these like mental snapshots when you like connect eyes with, your best friend, like on the other side of the stage, and you're performing and you're just like enjoying it. Or even those like real intimate shows where you're making that connection with the audience. Or maybe there's some like little kid in the front row who's just like seeing their first Irish dance show, and they're just like, you can see their head exploding.
Sure.
Like, what is this?
So talk about the differences between performing on the world stage, and especially as a top level competitor, where you've got, you're sort of defending your top 3 placings, maybe that you've had coming up to the world championships or something like that, when you're a high level dancer. Compare that to what you experienced when you're on stage at a big prestigious venue.
Well, when you're competing and training your legs and training your footwork to be a certain level, I always thought of it as like you're trying to get as many things automatic as possible. Automatic being consistent. Your heel clicks, your rhythms, your back heel, like all the different things. You want those to be automatic. You don't want to have to be like thinking about each thing as they're happening. You want
Sure.
that to just kind of happen. And so just performing adds a whole nother level of it, because now all of that dancing has to be automatic. All the movements have to be automatic. And now you're adding this extra layer of presentation that you wouldn't have had just competing with judges and, that whole spiel. So it's just a whole nother level of trying to be as consistent as possible. Because if you're doing a tour, you're doing the same show however many months, and it's the same show. So again, you're pushing that consistency to give the best performance you can every single day.
And that's probably the biggest challenge is being that consistent dancer. You're becoming very predictable in your cast and your fellow dancers. They're depending on you to, I guess, perform at that same intensity, that same level of dance, day in and day out. Yeah.
Yeah. Very similar to, going to a bunch of the feshing leading up to a big competition. It helps bring out that consistency that when you bring it to the big stage, you have that extra confidence that we've done this before,
Sure. You've done a lot of shows. You have a lot of performance and obviously competition experience. Who in your mind, if you're a casting director at a show, we're going to set up a hypothetical here. Someone gives Tyler $1 million and says, Tyler, we want you to go and interpret your vision of an Irish dancing show. So you get to make the calls. Who are you looking for as a casting director to be in a show? Who has the qualities that you're looking for? What is the characteristic of a show dancer in your opinion? Because obviously a little different than being a top level competitor. They're not always the same. I mean, I've heard a lot of people say that sometimes the best competitive dancer just can't cut it in a show. Tell us about that.
Yeah, everybody has their strengths and their shortcomings, obviously.
Sure.
So that's what makes things interesting. I'd say versatility would be the easiest thing. I actually do help with casting with some of the production. So I can tell you one of the big things I do look for is for people who are easy to work with, people who can just go with the flow, because on tour, so many curveballs and variables are thrown each and every day. Like one day the floor might be really slippery and we got to figure it out. Or the next day the floor is really hard. So we have to, be careful, stretch out and be safe. And, the tour bus breaks down. You just want those people who can go, all right, tour bus broke down. Let's, what happens next, and kind of just goes with the flow. And sometimes that person just makes the overall experience better than, say somebody who's, super talented, does all the dancing and the tricks and all this stuff, but can't really that flow, that lifestyle.
Right. Right. How much of the steps that you see in shows, how much of those steps do you think find their way in a competition? Because there's a lot of discussion in the various groups and stuff like that I belong to about, a lot of the show dancing steps are now in the competition, and it's changing what's tradition now. And there's too much tap in Irish dancing now. And you do a lot of improvisation type work. And I think it's brilliant, but talk about the influence from one style to the next and how it's changing Irish dancing as we know it.
Well, I'm actually, not to toss in plugs,
Okay. Hey, go ahead. Plug
but
away.
but I'm working on a production right now called Real Rhythm that incorporates the relationship between tap and Irish dancing. Since very early, I was very interested and intrigued by tap dancing, and like genuinely when I was younger, why is it so similar to Irish dancing? Why do they move their arms? Why do we not? And all that stuff, like the tradition behind the two, and their kind of how they both came out of each other over on the East Coast early in the century, a couple centuries
Sure.
back. Tap dancing coming off of the inspiration of what was happening with Irish dancing, and now the interesting thing is, we're almost in this new renaissance where Irish dance is drawing its influence from tap dance. It's almost come full circle where they were getting their inspiration from us, and now it's going the other way around.
Right.
And it's just so interesting. So yeah, I mean, I guess like my answer for like inspiration and all that, like to simplify it all down, like I think it all comes down to music, because what is dancing if not for just the personification of physical movement and or rhythm, or something that just accompanies it. And a traditional Irish tune, you got to go with the tradition. You got to bring the traditional Irish dancing to that matches. If you were to like do a head spin backflip, it just really wouldn't jive. It wouldn't connect. And likewise, if you're dancing to the latest Coldplay song and it's a remix, and you might have a bit of more of a modern influence to it. So it really comes down to the music. And if you go to that trad side, you accompany that in the best way,
Right. That's true. And I ask a lot of dancers that I interview from time to time their thoughts on movements that in Irish dancing that a lot of people know of, some people don't know of. Maybe they haven't seen them in a while, or maybe they're a younger generation that's never seen movements before. And I always think it's interesting when you see a movement that you may have seen years and years ago come back, and it has a more prominent position in Irish dance choreography. I think of like cross keys. Those are popular again, and people are even they're making them even more stylistic than they maybe used to have been. Just simple movements like that, but if they're done right, if you look at them, they have such an aesthetic appeal, and they kind of break up the machine gun rhythm that sort of permeates Irish dancing these days. Talk about some of the movements that you've seen sort of maybe come full circle, or maybe that were there when you first started dancing that have kind of made a resurgence, and how you as a choreographer uh, use those in your work.
Well, I always actually have had a lot of influence over the years with some amazing teachers who taught me this and passed down their knowledge to me. So I'm very thankful for that. But they always said, good choreography is like a good sandwich, like you can only have so much meat before it's just like, you got to have the meat, and then you got to have the accompanying, condiments and all that stuff. So like whenever I'm putting something together, I try not to overdo it.
Right.
That's I always got to remind myself that. But yeah, I mean, when I first started dancing, the big fascination I always had was heel clicks.
Right.
And all the older guys would be like doing 3 clicks and 4 clicks and all this stuff and big click downs. I'm like, that is the coolest thing. Like,
oh yes,
like being able to hit your heels in midair and then do more with it. And it's something from the very beginning when I was like, that's the coolest thing. And to now bring it here and try and incorporate that, add rhythm to it, add flair to it. It's a sound-based trick. So to add visual to it, it's all the what if questions. What if we did this? What if we clicked back there? What if we did 10 clicks? Like just it all comes from curiosity. And yeah, one of the best ways is to dig up the old trad stuff and what really kind of started the movements.
Mm-hmm. That's true. You come up with some very inspiring stuff. I like to watch your material quite a bit, and I'm always learning a lot of different things from it. I'm still trying to pick up those bang tip diddlies. I'm working at it. I like them. Yeah, it's a great movement, and it's amazing. And you really, I give you props for the way you break these things down, because what you're showing is, for most people, even top level dancers, it's very complicated, but you have a very good way of breaking that down to the most basic component. And I know as a teacher myself, when you're teaching things, sometimes some movements are really hard to break down and enunciate. You can break it down and get the sounds, but how you describe that in a way that that all dancers can pick it up is a challenge. Separates sort of the wheat from the chaff, as far as teaching is concerned. What keeps you inspired and motivated to keep coming up with these new rhythms without getting bored, without getting, okay, I've done that 5,000 times? What keeps you going?
Oh my God. Everybody dancing out there right now on the social medias, and people just really like pushing Irish dancing in fun and new ways. Not to name drop, but
Go ahead.
Obviously Dave Aghini is killing cross keys, man. Watching that stuff, oh my gosh. Gardner Brothers, just always good. The Porter Brothers, I've just started watching them.
Me too. Yeah.
And they're all doing new stuff, or taking old, like you were saying, old material and remixing it into a different way. Just being so creative. Just watching all that stuff. And it's like, it's on my phone now. Like back in the day, we had to watch VHS tapes, Parade of Champions, and hit the rewind button to play. And to wow, now we've got it just like on the palm of our hand, and we can just be like, oh, look at that trick. Oh, look at that video. Like, and it's just so inspiring, and that always gets me up and like thinking, all right, what can I do? How can I add to this community? Right. It's just so nice. Great.
Why haven't asked anyone this. You're gonna be the first person to get this question. Why is it such the trend to just push hard shoe? Why don't we see any dedication to the soft shoe? And I ask that because I think the men's soft shoe is so stylistic, and it's very difficult to do all that lifting. I think it's probably even more physically demanding than a hard shoe if you incorporate the lifting and the precision.
You're onto something right there.
Why don't we see? Hey, look, I'm too old to do it. Okay, I still dance. I love to dance, but you guys are you yourself and David and a lot of the innovators that you talked about. you guys are in the forefront. Why isn't there a push to do soft shoe? Because I think it's almost a dying, it's kind of a dead performance art for guys. You don't see it in shows hardly at
I
all.
was just gonna say that. I don't think I've put on a pair of soft shoes
Yeah.
in 5 or 6 years
And why do you
because,
think that is?
well, no, like all the shows out there, they don't incorporate soft shoe,
Right.
and other shows I've been a part of. If the guys are doing a group number or something like that, they'd say, well, wear a pair of Capezio jazz shoes or something else
Right.
more comfortable.
Right.
So I think it's that. I'd point it to that I really haven't needed to wear them professionally, and that I don't know. Yeah.
That's kind of a
Um,
frontier that's not tapped.
yeah. I mean, growing up, that was my favorite round of the three. Was
Mhm.
it eventually became the set round for a lot of reasons, but
Sure.
um, my soft shoe, I love that. Get having an energy drink and running around on stage doing big tricks. Like I was part of the Tony Hawk skateboard
Yeah,
era,
exactly. Yeah.
jumping up and doing tricks. That was the thing. So yeah, I mean, something that could be pushed further. I also think it's a lot easier, just on the videoing standpoint,
Right.
to put the camera down and just do rhythms right there in spot. The soft shoe stuff involves a wider
Distance.
angle.
Yeah, right.
I think it's
Yeah.
also a little bit of that.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah.
it's a great point.
Yeah.
Maybe we should be doing more soft shoe. I got to find my soft shoes though. They might have some dust.
And it's true, and it definitely separates. Uh, I think even more the styles between the males and the females, because a lot of the steps nowadays, hard shoe wise, we're doing a lot of the same stuff. Obviously, they're doing more toe stands and certain kinds of twirls that we may not do, or you competitors may not. The competitors may not do, but as far as soft shoes concerned, they're not clicking their heels, they're not spinning and you doing the sharp movements in the way the guys do. And I think it's kind of sad to see it sort of die when people retire from competition. Unless they're going to go off to go teach, you don't see it.
Well, my hope, is that those like gender barriers of like
Right.
boys do clicks, girls go on toes.
Yeah.
My hope is that that is slowly crashing down. Like I've seen some great girls dancing and incorporating heel clicks, and it's always just like eye catching because not too
Sure.
many are doing that. And then likewise on the guys' side, there's some great guys incorporating toe stands and all this stuff in really cool ways. And I hope that continues. It just for the health of Irish dancing, like that just makes it all better. And not to add another opinion, but
Go ahead.
you know, I could see some of the best guy dancers out there right now. They could smash a slip jig. I
I'm
think
with you. I'm with you.
it's such an artistic tune. There's so much more space between the counts. So like you could jump more, like you could do these great things. Like, and I think like let the guys do slip jig. I don't
Yeah.
know.
I tend to be a little more traditional, but I certainly see what you're saying and do somewhat agree. And I do. I'm older.
Why
I think
not?
when you get older, you tend to kind of get a little more traditional in some ways. But no, I agree with you. I think that's another area that I think Irish dance could be expanded, and that
Yeah,
guys could do different the slip jigs and
yeah.
stuff like that. And I don't know if I would be keen on watching a girl put on real shoes and do clicks, but hey, if they want to try it, why not? That'd be very different, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah. I love seeing that, and whenever I see it on social media, I love commenting with them and like giving them the support, like because
Yeah,
that is so cool, to really push the art form. We need everybody on board.
that's true. That's true. Now you do quite a bit of workshop teaching around the country and maybe even beyond. I know I've seen some of your videos from around the states. How have those experiences been? What have you learned from those working with those different dancers from different schools, maybe schools with different organizational affiliations that weren't around, when you started dancing?
It's fantastic. I was part of a very small school. I started at Trinity, a very big school,
Mhm.
transferred to a very small school. My main teacher, started her own school. I was part of a very small little situation for most of my dancing career. So I understand like the real struggles of some of the like really tiny schools to really get the material, get the support that they need. And so it's been fantastic, like working with these schools. And you know, I feel like back in the day there was more competitive, like more of a competitive focus, whereas nowadays there are like so many other schools that are like performance based, or you know, different commissions, even like everybody's doing and trying different things. And it's been really cool to see all the different, you know, focuses. I've been able to help people out in a bunch of different ways, be it performance or competitive insight.
So you actually, so you obviously have a knack for teaching. So
I love it.
you're
Yeah.
going to, I'm kind of leading you into a question here. What are you going to do with your dancing, Tyler? Are you going to start teaching? You going to go the traditional route and sit your certification with an organization, open up a mega school somewhere, or what's your plan 10 years out from now?
Oh my God.
I put you
That
on
is
the spot here.
another big old question. Well, most of my career so far, I've gone with the wind. I've never tried to go against it. You know, when I follow my gut, and you know, when I had the gut feeling after college to give performance dance a shot, you know, I don't regret that one bit, and it's led me to such an amazing experience, so many great friends and everything, and I want to follow that feeling, you know, teaching other people, inspiring others really feels great, and I want to chase that feeling. Performing and connecting with audiences and inspiring in that way feels really great, and I want to chase that as well. And hopefully they bring about more opportunities in the future, but you never know, you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
guess that's the best way to leave that
That's what I
answer.
leave that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Don't commit yourself to too much there. That's good. That's good. I mean, you leaving those doors open for opportunity, and that's great.
yes,
And you got
yeah.
many years to make that decision if that time comes. Um, do you do anything else outside of Irish dance?
Anything else?
Well, I mean,
Well,
as far as things that really would take a considerable amount of your time.
um, well, I mean, that's pretty much my focus right now. I guess as hobbies go, I love making videos. That's my other little fun thing to do.
Mhm.
Um, but video games, hanging out with a family, you know, family always comes first. And actually, after this call, I'm going to be doing a Zoom chat with my family. We're all over the country right now, but we try to set aside some time each week to hang out and play
Sure.
games and stuff.
Yeah. And speaking of that, let's touch on that just for a second, because this pandemic, as tragic and unfortunate as it is, it's forced a lot of people to be really innovative the way they do things, the way they conduct business, whether you're a banker or a real estate agent or a dance teacher. Do you,
Mhm.
th- there's obviously going to be some lasting changes from this experience. How do you see Irish dancing instruction changing, uh, given
Oh
our
boy,
dependence on technology now
yeah.
just exist?
Well, I can't be more thankful enough that we have the technology that we have right now to continue things. You know, if this happened, you know, a decade ago, whew, like
Yeah.
what would happen? You know, so thankfully we got things like this, like Zoom, and you know, other ways to connect with each other. And I think that's going to be the, you know, moving forward, virtual communications are just going to, you know, boost a tremendous amount, you know. God forbid this happens again, but I think we're going to be more prepared next time. I've actually done a few drop-in like Zoom Irish dance classes with some of the schools I work with,
Awesome.
and you know, it really is cool. It's tough. It's not perfect, you
No.
know, but there's a huge window right there for someone to figure out like a way for, you know, just teaching in general. And yeah, I think that's the lasting effect. I think from this we're going to be learning a whole lot and trying to prepare.
Hmm.
Yeah.
And so as someone who is very tech savvy, and obviously a teacher and choreographer, and you're always trying to find motivation to get those videos out there, there's a lot of people that are struggling with motivation, a lot of students that
Oh,
are having a hard time keeping it going, and keeping that ritual of stretching and dancing and practicing and tuning into those classes with their teacher, when obviously, like you just said, it's a very different experience trying to teach through video as opposed to someone standing there pushing you to do your dancing. What are your words of encouragement for people who are struggling with motivation right now.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Y- I mean, it's not like, first, know that it's not easy. I can't imagine, the younger guys, you know, dancing through all this. I've even felt my fair share of, like, just not being motivated most days, like waking up and being like, it's Groundhog Day. It's the
Yep.
same day again. Like, what are we going to do?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not easy. And, my best words of advice is to take baby steps in the right direction. Wake up, make your bed, feel the success of that, do a quick morning stretch, feel the success of that, and just the domino effect of doing the right things at the beginning of the day, moving forward. Like, that's helped me personally, like, keep things somewhat normal. It's not normal right now. It's tough for everybody, but trying those little things each day to kind of bring about that normalcy. And then I've been doing videos on, not another plug, sorry, but I've been doing videos on the YouTube channel, just kind of supplementary to whoever, whatever school you're working with. I'd like to help keep things interesting, a fun new trick, or a new fun step to dance to the latest song, anything, it's hard to stay motivated. So any little bit helps. The little things really add up, though.
Hmm. What is your advice to up and coming dancers that want to take their dancing as high as they can possibly take it? And maybe they don't have a lot of self-confidence. Maybe they don't believe in their self. We tend to doubt, right? We doubt ourselves a lot, doubt our abilities, but we still have some drive. We still want to try. What's your encouragement to those dancers who want to be their best, but doubt their abilities?
Well, I always say, let your teachers help, like, let them guide you. They want the absolute best out of you, and they it's not an easy time for them as well, in the Zoom classes, watching, the video with the delayed audio and all this. So really listening to your teacher's advice, and helping them, because they've all experienced the same things that you're going through right now, with staying motivated. And whether it's competitive or performance, their advice is the best thing and the best resource moving forward. I can't tell you how much inspiration I've gotten from the teachers I've had throughout the years.
What's the single best piece of advice you've ever been given by a teacher, mentor, college professor, friend, family member, anybody? Just one, the best one. That's
Oh
helped you
my
the most.
gosh. You know, um, well, I've gotten a lot over the years. That's the one thing, um, you know, I'd have to go to, like, my parents, saying, always keep family first, always keep those people close to you, no matter what. Always find that security and safety, like, there. Um, so always putting family first. Um, I'm not sure. It's a tough one to think of on the spot.
Okay. Well, you have a lot of different projects going on with your Tyler Teaches series, which I think is great. And you've got what was the name of the show that you're working on?
Real Rhythm.
Yep. So plug time, plug your channels, because I think I want people to know more about what you do, and the other dancers that I may have on, if they're doing projects, get it out there. Tell us what you got going
Oh,
on.
yeah. Okay. So I'm working on a production right now called Real Rhythm. We were supposed to debut the show physically uh, May 2nd, which is, like, coming up. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Um, Obviously, that's not happening. We did a virtual performance a few weeks back to debut the show. But we're hoping to continue working with virtual festivals and whatnot to get the dancing out there. So be on the lookout for that this summer. With all this lockdown, I've a YouTube channel doing Tyler Teaches, where I teach my favorite tricks and steps. Be it, basic stuff or really tricky, challenging stuff. I like kind of covering all of it and just talking it all out. But yeah, subscribing to that would be a huge help to me as I'm trying to get more Irish dancing on YouTube. Have you ever noticed that there's really not much Irish dance? If you look up Irish dancing, like the top videos are like 7 years ago, 10 years ago. Like we gotta get more videos, good Irish dance content on YouTube. So I wanna push that a little bit.
Good. That's good. All right. Okay. Well, Tyler, look, I appreciate all your time that you spent with us today. It's been very insightful. You've had lots of good experiences to share with everybody and good words of encouragement. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you again for having me. This has been fun.